Hi, this is Phil, and I'm here to tell you all about the Capes and Lunatics Patreon. Get early access to all of our interviews, including the monthly Chichester chats with writer and comic book legend DG Chichester, new episodes of classic Capes and Lunatics shows, including The Quantum Zone, This, That, or the Third, and many, many more specials, all completely uncensored. Access starts for $3 a month, full video when you pledge $5 a month. Check out the link in our show notes or go to patreon.com/CapesandLunatics. Hope to see you there.
Avast me hearties, and welcome once again to Full Stream Ahead. I be your Captain Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me as always is me first mate and skinny rich friend.
It's Mozz.
Welcome, Mozz, and welcome to Season 3, Episode 2, Chapter 18 of The Mandalorian, The Mines of Mandalore. Sorry. The Mandalorian and Grogu explore the ruins of a destroyed planet. So that's pretty straightforward.
Not just any destroyed planet.
I'm sorry?
Not just any destroyed planet.
Well, of what remains of Mandalore, and for what it's worth, what remains of Mandalore is apparently a lot. We don't get there right away. We know that he wants to get to Mandalore. Unfortunately, he needs a droid, because of course this is the whole quest, and this is arguably one of the criticisms that have come from that they did the Grogu Mandalorian story, the Grogu Darjin story in the middle of the Book of Boba Fett. And now they have to kind of re-hit those beats, because as you'll recall in the Book of Boba Fett, that's where the Armorer says the only way you can, be redeemed is to go and swim in, or be bathed in the living waters of Mandalore. And he was the one who said, well, that's destroyed. And she's like, well, then sucks to be you. And now, this one he had to basically fight with her to say, let me go and prove to you. And she's like, well, good luck. Which is one of my favorite things about the Armorer, is that she is so committed and nonplussed in the way that she handles everything. She's just, this is the way. And, if you can do it, then you're fine. If you can't do it, don't come crying to me.
I mean, it's not up to me.
Yes. And, this is kind of an interest, because he goes to Tatooine. Oh, no, it doesn't go to Tatooine. He goes to the first planet we went to, the first desert planet, whose name escapes me, but where once it was a beautiful, where before it was the Dust Bowl, now it's a going concern. This is actually our second return to it, I believe, because, as I recall, in the end of the last one is when he first faces the pirates, and that's when he gets away from the pirates, goes to the planet, meets the Mandalores, and then gets his quest, and now he's back, because he wants to take IG-11, or what's left of IG-11, and have him be his droid buddy, to which everyone's like, that's not a droid, buddy, that's like 3/3 of a droid. That's like 1/3 of a droid that was left after it self-detonated.
Right.
And it's like, well, can we fix him? It is at once, it's one of these things where, first off, dude, if we could have fixed him, don't you think we would have done that instead of turning him into a statue? I
mean, I don't know. He seemed like a pretty dangerous droid. They were probably like, yeah, let's not bring that one back online. Right?
Well, he
was a murder bot, essentially, is what he was.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, it's not like, it just looks like a piece of found art. that style of art where they find garbage and turn it into art. That's what this is. You can't turn that into, but it is.
Yeah, but at the same time, and we do see that when they go and they do take the parts down and they repower it up, and it's back to being, assassinate the child. And, but they go, it's, we do have, because, and of course, it's important to remember that,
like when you reset your phone, you lose all your apps, right? You go back to factory settings.
Yeah, and that's what he did. He went back to factory settings. By the way, we've got to mention in this that our director is Rachel Morrison, Jon Favreau. Actually, Jon Favreau wrote this episode and gets that created by link next to George Lucas.
Didn't I hear that he wrote and directed all of these episodes?
I don't think he did all of them.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't remember the last one if that was his, but maybe we'll see. We'll see when we do the next one if that's a Jon Favreau exclusive as well. We do see in this again, Grief Carva is definitely trying to talk. Basically, he's trying to work with what's his name, Din, to try and make him happy, try and get him so that he wants to stay because he needs a marshal. And we know this. And
wasn't this all last episode, though?
What?
Wasn't that all last episode?
No.
This one starts with him coming.
This is the one that starts with him. So, and again, just because we have a little bit of a gap here,
right?
Effectively, this is the episode where we get the little mustachioed guys that are the droid repairmen from. I think it was not the seventh, but the 8th episode of Star Wars.
I thought this started where he went to see the curly-haired lady.
Well, he gets to that eventually, but they basically have to, because they get to that spot where they say, we can't fix this droid. They don't even make parts for this thing anymore.
Right. I thought that was last episode. This one started off with, he's already relented that he's not going to have his spelunking droid. And so he goes to see the curly-haired lady and says, hey, I need another droid.
No, because he goes there on Bunta Eve, which I do like the fact that even though the Hutts are no longer in charge, they still celebrate the Hutt holidays.
Interesting.
Because Bunta is when Bunta the Hutt ascends to become the basically the Jesus, Moses, Muhammad of the Hutt faith. They celebrate this, and it's still a celebration, even though none of these people are Hutts. They still love to share in the joy of Bunta Eve, I wonder if there's funny memes on the Hutt homeworld of, look at what the crazy humans think Bunta Eve is about.
I mean, a lot of pagans could make the same claim about Christmas.
Mm-hmm. Of course. But that's the fun of it. And I just love the idea that there are these holidays, like Life Day, which is a Wookiee holiday, but actually a lot of people have taken it up, just because it's a fun holiday and people love holidays. You give us a fancy dessert, we're there.
Right.
But moving right along. He does go there. He says he needs, these parts for 1911, and she's like, okay, yeah, sure. They don't make those. They're first off, not only do they not make them, they're also contraband Imperial technology, which we're going to see later that they are rapidly decommissioning.
Doesn't that sound so short-sighted and so puritanical, like when the conquistadors came and just book burned every piece of philosophy from the previous landowners that they could find?
Yeah, I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, Mozz, one of the things of this is that the New Republic is not good at their job. And they're operating from this very weak place of, we need to just get rid of the old and everyone will just be nice now, which is a very bad idea. Because what it is, and there's this argument, and we'll get to that in the next episode too, that, there's people who say, we don't want to have a central power on Coruscant because that's what led to the rise of the Empire in the first place. Because people could say, well, we're just going to, once you establish that central power and then have to keep the order in the Outer Rim, suddenly it becomes much easier to just, send out the shock troops to bring everybody into order. And that is what they want to avoid now, but at the same time, they also don't have a way to replace it. That's the real problem. And the other real problem is that there's a lot of people that just don't want to replace it. The Outer Rims, like what Grief Carver says, wants to be a truly independent planet. They're going to be a hub. They're going to have people coming and going. And the last thing they want is some bureaucrat on Coruscant telling them what to do.
What technology they can use or what technology is out of bounds.
Exactly. So, but he goes there, and Amy Sedaris' character, Pelimoto, who delightfully is missing a tooth, which it was a gag she did in the Book of Boba Fett where she gets knocked out and she spits out the tooth. And she says, "No, I don't have a tooth. Hey, let's keep this gag going." So, and I imagine later she's going to get a fancy tooth when she gets some money in. We'll get her have a nice gold tooth kind of thing. It'll be fun. It'll be fun to see how they play out that gag in the future. But we see her. Of course, she's scamming a guy because she's having Jawa steal the guy's parts, repaint the parts.
Beskar teeth exist.
What?
Do you think the Mandalorians for dentistry used Beskar teeth? Beskar was a much more common material.
I don't know if they had Beskar teeth. It might not be the most useful use of Beskar, though.
If it was common,
yeah.
Back then, they might have used.
I will say that there are probably people who did have Beskar grills, especially if you had that wealth, and not a Mandalorian. Because if you were a Mandalorian, who would ever see your Beskar grill?
Right.
Think about it,
Well, not all Mandalorians followed that path.
Well, I know, but the true
more modern Mandalorians.
Well, we're going to talk about that too. Okay. So anyway, she pawns off. I'm
just imagining Mandalorian rappers in my head with grills,
Yeah. But we do pan off R4D5 on poor old Mando here, who is just not a good negotiator. Because he's like, this is not the droid I'm looking for. I need something that's rated for spelunking. It's like when she sold him this hot rod, that's really good, but not for what he needs it for. He needs a Razor Crest. He needs something he can use and take people back in. This thing doesn't have any of that. This thing is...
I can't see its little wheels spelunking.
Yes. Well, but he needs something that can actually test the atmosphere. And, and this actually gets to my central issue with this. And for what it's worth, R5D4 is they say in one non-canon comic book, they say he's a Force-sensitive droid, that he's a droid that actually is aware of the Force and can feel the Force.
I think it should be canon.
And I do wonder if that's how Grogu is able to communicate with this astromech when they get back to Bo-Katan. But we'll see that in a little bit, because we do see that he's got his astromech. They go. They don't explain how the astromech gets in and out of that ship, because we usually see there's some kind of a crane device that lifts them out and puts them in and all that kind of stuff. But here he's just hopping in and out somehow, so we're just going to assume that works.
Maybe he is good at spelunking.
Yes. Well, maybe he would have been, but of course the problem is that, and this is one of these things where it's like, okay, the air might be safe to breathe, but it might be too radioactive to live on. Because immediately as they get in there, they say, yeah, we can't broadcast anything.
Oh.
And you likewise get in the idea that, we can't. So as soon as the droid goes out there to test the air, they can't communicate with the droid. So now, he tells Grogu to seal himself in his pod, and he does the vapor lock on his helmet. He goes out. And he realizes that, okay, I can analyze the air. The air is fine, and then puts R5 back in the ship because he is not ready for splunking. And then him and Grogu go down to look for the waters. And they fight off a couple of the troglodytes, who, as it turns out, are, again, the native species of Mandalore, of the planet Mandalore, that the Mandalorians have effectively run off their land. You see a lot of this in this. It's like there's a lot of these colonial aspects of the diaspora coming to a planet, finding a people there, and then just saying, but we're actually going to take the land anyway.
Wait, do we know that for sure? Or have they been away from this planet for thousands of years and whatever form of life has evolved into something that can withstand the physical pressures of this radiated place? Maybe that's why they're all bone white.
Well, from what I understand and from what Bo-Katan tells us is that these were the creatures that used to live outside in the Badlands.
Right.
So because they lived out in the Badlands, we can assume they are at least native to this planet. And again, we don't know if maybe Mandalorians came from here or just Mandalore the Great came here with his team of people, which in some stories include the throngs who were run off of Coruscant by the humans of Coruscant. So Mandalore took these other people and brought them to Mandalore. So, there's just this idea of everybody moving all around this galaxy and building their own empires as they do. We also get in this a nice scene where because Grogu is a foundling now, is going to be raised in the Mandalorian way, because that is the path he chose. He shows him how a Mandalorian has to know the stars, because that's how he navigates, and that's what he has to be able to know so that he can find his way to where he's going and find his way back home.
And a Mandalorian needs to have his ways of egress planned out. I can get away from here. I can get away from here. This is my escape route. Very important for a Mandalorian.
Yes, absolutely. And then within this entire concept, we get after the fight with the troglodytes, we see Mando coming across basically dusted Beskar armor that is laid out, and that is absolutely a trap. Because he touches the helmet, and suddenly the big metal trap comes up, and now he is captured. And little Grogu has to get out. And one thing I love about this is that as Grogu is going out, he meets another one of the troglodytes, and Grogu doesn't have time for it. He just pushes him out of the way. It's like, just go. Okay, I got to go save Papa.
Yeah,
so he goes, gets.
You think he couldn't have done that to the robot?
To IG-11. It's an interesting question. Well, you know what? I think he might have been. I think there's and what one could argue is there's a different energy when someone you love's in danger than when you're in danger. That when you're in danger,
what I mean is the robot that captured Din Djarin. Couldn't Grogu have force pushed him away and forced open the metal container to release Mando?
I mean, I guess it's possible, but then again, I don't know. Because, that's the thing is that the big metal robot actually is a lot heavier than a living being. And we know that living beings are probably easier to manipulate with the Force because the Force is flowing through them as well. So, when you attack a living being, it's like working with judo, whereas if you attack a robot, it's like trying to move a rock. You can do it.
It's just going to be very hard.
Yeah, it can be a little more difficult. Though there is a living part to that robotic creature as well. But for whatever reason, Grogu felt that the best thing to do is go get help. Yeah. Rather than try to use his powers to defeat this guy, he's going to go back and get Bo-Katan. Gets Bo-Katan, they all go back in her ship, and Bo-Katan basically starts telling little Grogu all the stories of the Mandalores and the Mandalorians and what the history of their people were. And one thing I find very fascinating is how she is like bonding with this little Grogu, who is now, in its own way, a little adopted kid, and makes the point to him, what, you thought your dad was the only Mandalorian? You know, it's like, he may not count me as a Mandalorian, but I'm a Mandalorian too. I was freaking princess of the Mandalores, you know? I know all the legends. And, you know, there's even that point when they do save Din Djarin from the
Din Djarin?
And I don't even know what that eye creature in the robot. And I'm trying to remember if they kill it or if it escapes. I think they killed it. I think they must have killed it. Yeah, they do kill it. And, you know, she gives him pug soup, which is, I guess something that, you know, on Mandalore, all young Mandalorians drink, because this is their warriors gruel. This is, you know, it's this bone broth that you make that everybody drinks. But he, as a foundling and one raised by the Death Watch, never enjoyed. And then you do see the ruins of the Mandalorian capital city. We do see, you know, Bo-Katan telling him, "You will never find the waters without me," you know, because it's hidden. It's, you know, it's underneath the city. It's in a special spot. Although, interestingly enough, when they do find it, it does seem like it was a tourist attraction, you know, because it's got the little memorial plaque, you know, like you'd go if you were walking downtown Washington, D.C. on this spot, you know, and I do find that interesting. But, you know, it's neat when they're talking and she's telling them about her past and her relationship with her father, and how you can see there's a lot of, you know, I was never good enough. You know, my father never.
But then when you see her wield the Darksaber, my God, she's proficient with that. And you compare it to relatively how difficult it was with Mando to even lift the thing above his shoulders. You're like, my God, she really should be the one in charge. She really does have power.
I do think that's the point of this. And I think that is what's going to come up in it in the end, because it is going to be.
Part of me almost thinks that Din might have set this up just so he can give her the Darksaber in a way where she feels like she earns it, right? Yes. He wants to just give it to her, but he knows she can't take it. So part of me is almost like, did he get caught on purpose just so he could deliver the Darksaber to her, because that's where it belongs? And he doesn't really want it. He doesn't want the responsibility. He doesn't want the idea of him being local to one thing. He likes being like a far-flung, free-floating, you know, person. So this is a good way of, you know, anointing her.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, she saves his life twice in this. First from the Eye Beast, and second when he did not know there was a deep end to the pool. Although, again, it is very neat because, you know, and again, it is this idea that, you know, when he's reciting the prayer and how she recited the prayer as a child. And she made the promise to be the Mandalorian and to wear the armor and to, you know, be this person, you know. And at the time, it had no meaning to her, because to her, it was just politics. It was just, how do we celebrate the princess having her baptism, just as all of us have had. And it's meant to be this great leveler of society. But from her house, she felt like, no, they were, or she felt she was a political animal, not the spiritual being. Mm. But I do think that that's maybe even part of the point, is that that's who she was. That's not who she's going to become at the end of this story.
It's almost kind of like, I kept thinking like she jumped into the waters to save him. So technically she's redeemed as well. Now, how is she going to treat this information? Is it something she wants, or is it something she's been pretending she doesn't want because it wasn't available to her? One of those things like, I didn't want it anyways. Right. But now that it's in your, how does someone react to that situation? What is it like? Does the truth come out, or does she still keep her guard up and says, no, I don't need this? So that as soon as that happened, I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait for this moment where she has to confront this fact of her whole life being the outsider and now having access to the inner circle. And does she admit that she wants it, or does she keep being, upholding this story in her mind that she doesn't need it?
Well, it's interesting. When the armorer spoke of Bo-Katan before, she basically says, she claimed the right to rule based on heritage and a weapon that she did not earn, And it is the idea that Bo-Katan has always basically taken the easier route, the path of least resistance, even though that's not her intention from the armorer's perspective. And again, it is important to always remember, this is a magical universe. Magic is real. So when people start talking about their ceremonies and their rituals, there is the Force. And the Force exists for all species. So likewise, when the Force, the Mandalorians experience the Force in their own way as well, and likely, do utilize it, even though they don't call it the Force. So in this magical universe, these rituals, these rules and organizational tenets, they actually do have real magical power. And acting like they don't, you come off like Han Solo, saying, it's all just, tricks and magicians and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, no, this is actually real stuff, And you should know that you're not, it wasn't that long ago that you knew there was a Jedi Order that protected most of the Outer Rim. Although if you never met a Jedi, you might not know much about it. And then, of course, probably when Han Solo did meet people, there were people like the gentleman from the Obi-Wan series who was actively a huckster, So
which guy was that?
I'm trying to remember his name. I want to say it was. Part of me wants to say it was Cal Penn, but he's mostly known as an Indian comedian and a very funny guy, very talented guy, and I think he's the guy in Chippendales.
Oh,
in the Chippendales series.
Kumail. Oh, Kumail, okay. Right.
Yeah, and I'm sorry. I know I'm a horrible racist that I only know like one or two. I don't, honestly, to be fair with you, I don't know white actors either. So I would like to say that my lack of knowledge of who actors' names are is completely universal.
I mean, they both begin with a K. That's understandable. I don't think anybody needs to worry.
But anyway, he's great in that, and he also got a redemption arc in that, and that's the thing. Is like once you actually see the magic, suddenly the magic has a little more weight to you. And in this episode, Bo sees the magic because she sees the Muddy Mythosaur, and that is an impressive thing, and that is a moment that gives her pause because these things aren't even supposed to exist. It's like she saw Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster. But like if the Loch Ness Monster was like it's like she saw Aslan. If you ever read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, she's seeing this mythical beast that is also the symbol of her people's faith that is appearing to her in this moment when she is putting herself at great risk to save a friend.
And it gives a different perspective on the first scene where we think we're seeing Din Djarin's baptism, but we're not. Right? They're doing a metaphor for the living waters, and they're baptized, and then a creature comes out and tries to attack them, which must have been, why they chose that piece of water, because there is a creature in it, and that's part of their ceremony.
And for what it's worth, this mythosaur does not pursue. The Smithsaur does not attack. It sees them and it looks at Bo and gives Bo the chance to do what she needs to do. And in her saving of Din, she could have let him die, take that dark saber, and say, well, I did defeat him, and sadly he perished, but I brought Grogu, and now all of you follow me. But she doesn't. She does this thing selflessly to try and save her friend. And then they both come up out of the water, and they're alive. And that's the end of this episode. And we're going to talk about what the fallout is from this in the next episode. But Mozz, any final thoughts on this?
No, I'm super excited for Bo-Katan, and I love that they showed us what she's capable of, right? That she's like this supreme fighter, really, really good at what she does. And just the fact that the dark saber likes being in her hands speaks a lot. And I can't wait to see where her character goes. That's going to be really exciting. I want to see more fight sequences with Bo-Katan.
Yeah, and what I will say about that is, I think they've even said that as much, which is that, you have to know yourself to use the Darksaber, and that and for what it's worth, we know from the Clone Wars or whatever series that was, that she has trained with the Darksaber before. So she has learned how it works and learned how to be one with it. So
right, and they must be accessing the Force in order to be able to use it, right? That's got to be where you muster up the strength to be able to hold it, because you're one with your chi and you know how to mold your chi.
Exactly, and that's the whole thing about it. Like I said, this is a universe where magic is real, and once magic is real, suddenly everything you think you know, you have to reassess. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, do you know that magic is real? Do you know that magic is not real? Do you want to discuss magic and its gatherings all around us? Why don't you write us a letter at CapesandLunatics@gmail.com. That's CapesandLunatics, all one word, @gmail.com. Or if you don't like to do the typey type, how about do the speaky speak and give us a call at 614-382-2737. That's 614-38-CAPES. Likewise, go down to our show notes, click on Linktree, linktr.ee/CapesandLunatics, where you'll get links to all of our shows, all of our merch, our Patreon, our Cash App, all the ways you can give us money or just support us by listening to our shows and saying, oh, I enjoyed that download. We would appreciate it. And, Mozz, if people would like to reach out to you personally and would like to talk to you about this episode or any of the episodes in the upcoming Mandalore series, how can they find you?
Oh, they can email me at mozzmanzor@gmail.com or find me on Facebook under Mozz Manzor. That's MOZZMANZOOR.
And likewise, you can always write to me that old-fashioned email way the way our mothers and fathers once did at superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog, all one word, @gmail.com. Of course, follow me on the Twitter as I live tweet things when I feel like it. I got through one episode of Gotham Knights. I haven't done yet again. But at Charlie Esser, that's CharlieEsser. Look for the two E's in the middle.
For quality.
For quality. Bing.
Thank you, Mozz, and thank you, Tristan. All right, me hearties, you've come to the end of another raucous trip down the bounding main. Please come again next week when we'll once again sail full stream ahead. Arrgh.